Hey there, hey friends, Ken here, your Thrifty Apprentice. Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome back to another Thrifty review. In today's quick review, we're going to be taking a look at the Shinhan Professional Korean Colors. It is one of the art products that ranked really high on the video that we did where you guys had a chance to vote on the new products that you wanted to see the most. And so we are finally getting around to a review. I have been kind of testing these for a few weeks now, and I think I'm finally ready to kind of offer my opinion. And let's just dive right in. Now, they come in a two-piece box, which is pretty thick to protect the tubes. There are going to be 18, let's see, what are these, 20 milliliter tubes. So you're going to get a lot of paint. Now, the packaging and the branding is pretty simple and straightforward, like most of Shinhan products. And it says a superior blend of the finest colors, Shinhan Professional Korean Colors for the discerning artist. It lets you know that they are made in Korea. All rights are reserved. Nothing's on the back of the box, but you guys probably remember all of that from the unboxing. Now, on the inside of the lid, you're going to get a full range listing, all of the color names and the color numbers. They are listed out in English. And this says 20 milliliters, says times 18, but there's more than 18 colors there. So I'm assuming again that is the full range of colors that's in this particular line. So you have some pretty big tubes here. You have the color name listed on the front. It's going to give you the light fast rating, the transparency, as well as the series that each color is included in. On the back, you have the AP stamp of approval and the pigment numbers for each of the colors. Now, we're going to get into pigment numbers a little bit later. Quite a bit to cover there. So that's basically all of the physical aspects of it. The tubes themselves have really easy to screw off caps. There's not any issue with that. I didn't really have a huge consistency issue. There was some. Now, I'm not sure if it was because maybe the paints sat on a shelf in like a warehouse for a minute before I actually ordered them, or if this is a consistent issue with Shinhan tube paints or this particular line of Shinhan watercolors anyway, because I have tested other lines of Shinhan watercolors that I have in tubes, and I did not experience as much of binder paint separation as I did with this particular set. So that is one thing to be noted. Now, I panned them up and I gave them about 24 hours to dry down. I panned the paints up in this little, Jerry Q kind of travel palette. They dried down pretty well. I didn't experience any cracking. The paints almost stay this semi-moist state. They don't dry really hard at all. Re-wet really well. You don't really have to pre-wet them, so I didn't have any issues with that. The only thing is, if you remember from the unboxing, there were a few that had quite a bit of binder paint separation that I did need to use a toothpick to mix together before I gave them the chance to dry down in order to recombine that paint and that binder. So I do believe that is something that should be noted. Whether it's a consistent problem or not, it was a problem with this particular set. So that is that. Let's take a look at the swatches here. So I did swatch them out on 100% cotton paper, and overall they are pretty decent swatched out. You're going to get a nice arrangement of colors here. There's a bit of a shift from wet to dry, especially in a really watery state. The more mass tone colors should I say, doesn't seem to shift as much, although there is a shift. Now, you'll notice here in some of the swatches there's this really kind of weird texture granulation where the water kind of back ran into the mass tone, and it's in quite a few of them, including the opera, which this is one of the few sets I've used that has the opera color in it. Very fugitive color, fluorescent pigments in it. And again, we're going to talk about the pigments in just a moment. Overall though, if the paints are used in like mass tone to heavy consistency, they were actually pretty decent and pretty bright. You're going to get some granulation in your ultramarine and your indigo simply because those two contain PB29. And here you can definitely see that this other texture is more like a flocculation than a granulation, because you can definitely tell granulation when you see it. as you can there in those two colors. Now, yeah, so as far as mixing the colors are concerned, they mixed pretty well in all honesty. I was able to get really clean secondary colors. Here I pulled primaries out of red, yellow, and blue. And then here I used a red, blue, and, well, form of yellow, but more of an orange. Got some really decent secondaries that were pretty bright and vibrant. So again, using it in more of a mass tone, more of a heavy consistency, you're gonna get some really nice, bright, and vibrant colors that are more semi-opaque to opaque, kind of almost gouache when you use them in that feel. Now, when you water them down, you're not gonna get as much saturation, and there is not a real big flow to any of them either. They really didn't move much during the flow test, but I did mix and get some really nice neutrals, and that ultramarine just really mixes and put beautiful granulation into any of the secondary colors that's made from it. You can get almost inky black mixing the indigo with like a burnt umber or a burnt sienna brown from the set. So you can get some really nice mixtures from it. Now, if you are a person, in my opinion, that's just looking for like some really nice bright paints, that you're gonna get a lot of paints in the tube and they're just kind of really easy to paint with, and you know, you get some nice granulation with single pigments. You can actually pull a mixing palette from here. You have a carmine, a single pigment red, a single pigment yellow, and have a single pigment blue, a single pigment yellow ochre. Now the burnt sienna is dual pigment, but both of those are pretty light fast pigments. So you have a brown here. Then the black is light fast, and so is the white if you use those in mixing sets. So you could definitely pull like single pigment mixing sets from here. A single pigment mixing set, not sets, set from here. And kind of be pretty confident with the light fastness. So those are just kind of like the upsides to it. Now the downsides to the paints is that if you are someone who is really kind of into pigments, the light fastness of paints, if the light fastness matters to you, then this definitely might not be the set for you, because you have a set full of fugitive pigments. And I do mean full of them. You have a few that are light fast. You got your PR 108 is a pretty light fast pigment. You typically see it used as like maybe cad red, but then it's mixed with this PR 48 Colon 1, which according to Handprint and a couple of other blogging sites that do independent light fast testing that I kind of researched, it is a super fugitive pigment. So to mix it with a very light fast pigment is going to decrease the light fastness of it in the overall mixture. They use pigments like PR3, which doesn't even have an ASTM rating, but Handprint rated it fair. Other sites like Kimberly Crick and other people who have done independent testing on it rates it really fugitive, right alongside your PR112, your PY20. All of these are like considered really fugitive colors or pigments. And then when you get down into the second row, it gets even worse, because most of every pigment I encountered is considered fugitive, with the exception of PB29, which happens to be in the ultramarine and the indigo. But then the indigo is stretched with a PB66, which I really had to dig to even find a rating. And then of course the independent rating showed that it was a super fugitive color. So yeah, your opera, which has fluorescent pigments in it, is going to be fugitive. Now the PBR 24 was actually considered light fast from a lot of different sources that I checked. As I said earlier, your PR 101 and your PR 20 are really light fast pigments. So your earth tones are okay. Your PBR 7 is a very light fast pigment. Then you have your black, which is PBK9, typically ivory black. When you see it, it's very light fast. And then PW18, which is chalk white, but nonetheless light fast. So light fastness going on in your earth tones, a little light fastness in some of the reds and the yellows. You have light fastness as far as the ultramarine goes, but yeah, friends, a lot of the pigments are super fugitive in this set. So if you are a person that base purchasing your paints on pigments and the light fastness of those pigments, then this would definitely not be a set that's going to be for you. Let's just take a look real quick at some things that I did with them. Of course, I did a flow test. They flowed okay. As you can see, they're pretty bright. This again is 100% cotton paper. So as long as you're using them in mass tone and just being mindful of the amount of water that you're using in your paint mixture, then you can get some really saturated, consistent, beautiful kind of compositions with the paints. Now in the unboxing, we did this little landscape, and here I use ultramarine in a lot of the mixtures because the landscape was so simple. I wanted to make sure I added texture to it. This is on, I want to say a 25% cotton, 75% cellulose paper. So more like your Fabriano studio paper. I think this is Soho Urban Artist from Jerry's, but nonetheless, it held its saturation really well. Granulation was beautiful. The colors blended and mixed really well. Nothing made mud. I was able to blend all of the earth tones and the more oxidey pigments were able to reactivate it and be lifted. Now, of course, the more fugitive pigments, especially in the reds like the opera, those colors are going to be more staining. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. And then I use them in sort of a mixed media fashion. I was doing one of the World Watercolor Month prompts, and the prompt was hats. So I sort of worked on a Christmas in July thing. I'm thinking about using this as the card front for Christmas card, Christmas season 25. Maybe put some writing over here in gold foil or something like that. But anyway, I used the paints as the base layer in this, and then I glazed this hat with Sennelier fine student grade. So this is their La Apatite Aquarelle, their student grade set mixed with these paints. The painting turned out really well. I used a little white bleed proof gouache in order to do the major whites in the set. So for something that was kind of simple, they worked well. They layered okay. They will activate and lift, so there's something to be kind of cognitive of. What's funny though is, although they'll reactivate and lift, a lot of the fugitive pigments are staining, so you're not going to necessarily get back to the white of the paper. Something to keep in mind. So there you have that. As far as the price is concerned, the 18 color set is currently unavailable on Amazon, but the 12 color 20 milliliter tube set is priced at $39.87. And then there's a 24 count 20 milliliters tube set for $93. So the paints are rather pricey, because even $40, you are getting, but you do have to kind of think about the amount of paint you're getting. But you are getting a lot of paint that's full of fugitive pigments. So, you know, if I had to give these paints a rating on a scale of 1 to 5, I would definitely put them in student grade, and I would put them at about a 3.5. Because you are going to get some really bright and beautiful, kind of consistent colors. Like I said, as long as you don't water them down too much, you can get some nice granulation. The earth tones are pretty light fast, and they mix to make beautiful neutrals. You can pull single pigment mixing set from it if you wanted to. So there are some upsides to it, but I do have to be kind of realistic. The price is kind of pricey when you think of it in the overall scheme of other student grade sets that you can get, where you're going to have more single pigments and where you're going to have more light fast pigments. I would put them at, again, about a 3.5. They probably would not be a paint set that I would readily recommend, especially not one to a beginner. Now, if you're someone who's been painting for a while and you just want something new to try out, maybe you know an artist that has everything, and hey, here's a set of paints that's kind of formulated a little differently from most Western watercolors that you might be used to, and just want something that's fun for sketchbook work, because these are definitely not the type of paints that I personally would recommend anybody trying to do any type of commission work or work where they were going to be selling anything. And then of course you would never ever hang these directly into any type of sunlight. Not that you would do that with any of your paintings, but definitely not with a set like this. So there you have all of that information, my friends. Hopefully you found something about this information helpful. If so, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. You can share the video because maybe it'll help get it in front of someone else who would love to see the review on these paints. Jump in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Have you tried the Professional Korean Colors by Shinhan? What do you think of them? I mean, in comparison to all of the other Shinhan paints that I have tried, which I absolutely love, this would probably be my least favorite of the Shinhan produced paints. But that's just my personal opinion based on my painting experience and my painting style. You can check the video description for all of the relevant links, Patreon, all of the social sites. You can check out the Defyantarts website, most recommended product list, all those great things. So be sure to check that out. And remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, my friends, just keep creating.